at 9:15. Again, please do send me an email by Sunday if you want to take the exam, because I need to get an estimate of how many students I have to deal with. And I propose to you that I make the exam in the order students subscribe, but you don't need to rush sending me the email, because in any case we will get all the exams done by, if I would say by 1 o'clock, yeah, from 9 to 1, yeah, I think everything will be done by that time. If you decide at the last minute not to take it, please send me an email so I can get a good picture of the number of students. For the subsequent appeals, instead, you will find them on Al-Maizani, and they are already there. So if you want to subscribe for June, I don't remember, 12 maybe, it's on Al-Maizani, and you have to subscribe there, not to send an email. If you need additional dates, contact me. In principle, I am available, of course not every day, but in principle, if you need extra dates, I can be available. An important question that you may have is, like, if I take the exam on Monday, am I allowed to come back the next appeal, June 12, whatever? And my suggestion is, usually, it's unlikely that you are rejected with my exam, but it may happen that you get a mark that is not satisfactory for you, and therefore you decide to come back. And my experience suggests that if you are not happy with your mark, usually 1 week is not enough. So my suggestion is try to wait more than 1 week, because usually it's not a good experience if you try to take the exam every week. It's not a good idea. So I would kindly ask you, if you decide for whatever reason, or you are rejected, it may happen, and you decide for whatever reason that you are not happy with the mark that I am proposing, what I'm suggesting to you is not to come 1 week later, but in any case we can discuss it during the exam on Monday. And mine is just a suggestion. And usually my experience is that students that come at the first appeal, which means before the formal closure of the lectures, usually they are very well prepared. And this is my experience. So my suggestion is, if you feel prepared, take this exam on Monday, because usually, as I said, it's unlikely that you are unhappy. Also, keep into account that on Monday, the first appeal, I will be a little bit more lenient, not a lot, but a little bit more, yes, because I understand that only 1 week after the closure of the lectures, it's not really, I understand if you're not well prepared, especially in the last parts that I discussed, like support intrusion. If you are not perfectly prepared, I understand it. On the other hand, if you really want to get a very good mark, like if you really want to get 30, there are students that they really want to get at least 30, just I think that you are experienced enough to understand, and I wouldn't suggest you just to try. Because it's unlikely that if you have some doubts and if you rush in order to get prepared, you know, my suggestion is just, if you really want a very good mark, it probably is not a good idea that you just try. If you feel that you are weak on something, and we can make an experiment now to understand if you are weak or not, and in the sense that now I will tell you potential questions and you understand if you are already prepared or not, and I think you have the means to evaluate. If you have any question while I'm speaking, just stop me and ask, okay? Now, as I told you, the first question is like descriptive speaking. I will discuss to you in 10 minutes the interactions that we had. The students that had an interaction, that gave a presentation, I will tell you that I was happy with them. And therefore, with these students, I probably will skip the first question and I will go straight to a technical question. Because, as I said, I am happy, especially with the person that presented more once and interacted more, but we will discuss in detail. And therefore I can skip it and the exam will be like shorter. I would like to give to you the opportunity to make a last interaction, like if you already interacted, and again, I will discuss the names with you in 10 minutes. And you would like to come with, let me say, a second question, technical, that is decided by you, this is fine to me. Which means that, again, for those students who already interacted, I think this is an option. If you didn't interact before, I don't think it is a good idea to start interacting at the exam. But if you interacted before, and you want to come and discuss the second question, which is technical and short, and you propose it, this is fine. It should be technical, so not something like just blah, blah, blah. You should select, we did some topics that were technical. IMOD, linear reservoir, saltwater intrusion, and whatever. You have a better perception than me, and you should select the second question on a technical issue, and short. Like, keep in mind you should speak no more than 10 minutes, absolutely no more. Okay? And you are allowed to do that. Again, only if you interacted before, because I don't think it's a good idea to start with the exam. In this case, basically, the exam will be closed by a third question by me. So in this case, the first question will be the interaction that we had. So it's not actually a question at the exam. It's something that it's already done during the subject. I hope I am clear. If I am not clear, please tell me. So the exam, the actual exam on Monday will be 2 questions. One is selected by you. The last one will be selected by me, because of course I need to check whether you are prepared on something that I pick up randomly. Okay? But of course, if you come with a question that is prepared by you, selected by you, it's an advantage for you. And I encourage you to do so. The only thing is try to make a good selection. Like, if you want a very good mark, try to come with a tough stuff, because you have time to prepare it, and try to speak well, because of course what I'm expecting, if the question is selected by you, is that you have no doubt that you speak well, and you move forward quite, autonomously, independently. I'm not expecting that I have to ask like, sorry, I didn't understand, but in any case, I think it is a good option for you, because you have time to prepare it. And then there will be just one question that I pick up randomly, very briefly. And usually I ask definitions, and I will make some examples. For when I want to be very quick with a question, I ask a definition. Like, what is, I'm not sure I defined the catchment during this, yeah, I think so. I gave the definition of the catchment. I need to check if it is on the web page. So what is a catchment? And you have to be precise on that, not like just, because it seems a stupid question, but it's not. Because when I ask students what is a catchment, usually students start speaking and speak for a long time without saying what is a catchment. Like, it is an area where there is a river and the river gets downstream to a closure, but it's not clear what is a catchment. Okay? The catchment is, you know, the definition, and it's on the web pages. Okay, and that's it. I think that all the other things I will discuss with you. How it is done the exam. So if you didn't do any interaction, keep in mind my first question will be something very general, and you are allowed to speak, but try to speak well. To speak well, and meaning that you should go to the point, be concise and clear. This is something that I evaluate. For those who gave the presentation, I already evaluated it. I was happy with everybody who gave the presentations. But if you didn't give any presentation, of course, I need the exam to understand whether you have good speaking capabilities. Now, let me make some example of questions, and I think the best thing is to have a look at the summary of our subject. And these are the topics that we dealt with. I still have a doubt on whether this selection of topic was appropriate and well organized. So I would like to get your feedback on this. Okay? And our subject, underlying subject, is sustainability. Sustainability of water resources systems. So I'm still wondering whether this is a good perspective. Of course, we cannot discuss everything about sustainability, but sustainability, you know, it's a concept that is under development, especially from a technical point of view. It's really something that is under development. So if you have any suggestion at the end, and to deliver to me about what's missing here, or what is unclear, what is redundant, you may say, yeah, I didn't like this, I did not like this. Just let me know. So we talked about sustainability at the beginning, in general, and be careful of the question, how would you define sustainability? This is a possible question, which may seem trivial to you, but this is something that is tricky, because actually sustainability is not well defined. So, especially from a technical point of view, so you may run the risk of saying obvious things. Just look at what is written there, or I can accept alternative interpretations. The only condition is that you are convincing. You explain, well, what is sustainability? What's the problem with sustainability? What is sustainability? Okay? And I may ask something like, what are the threats? What are the dangers for water resources in terms of sustainability? Why water resources may be not sustainable? Management of water resources may be not sustainable. Be careful of these typical first questions. And you have to reply as an engineer, not as a person in the street. And now we discussed about assessing water resources availability. This is our first big topic, which is a classical topic, but it's very relevant when we speak about sustainability. And then we spoke about inductive and deductive methods. So a typical question is, what is a flow duration curve? How do you define it? Be careful of this question because it seems trivial and it's a bit tricky. There are several students that don't provide a good definition of flow duration curve. You just have to say what is in the abscissa and what is in the ordinates, and don't forget to say equal or higher. Okay? So, in the ordinates you have flow, and in the abscissa you have the number of days. You may say the number of days, or you may say the percentage of time with respect to a reference period, which is more accurate, during which the river flow was equal or higher to a given value. This is the correct definition. And of course you can change it a little bit, but don't say something that is not clear. Like some students, I ask, what is a flow duration curve? And they say, a flow duration curve is a representation of flow availability. I do not understand what is. Okay? You have to technically say what is. Okay? How to estimate a flow duration curve? I may ask you. Let's suppose that you have 10 years of daily data on river flows. Please tell me how to estimate the flow duration curve. And you have to tell me that there are two methods that we discussed, and we described the two, and what are the pros and cons, advantages and disadvantages of the two methods. Uncertainty in one case, better definition in the other case. If I say something that is not clear, again, stop me. This is a typical, again, question, flow duration curve. Okay, and then we turn to deductive methods. A typical question may be, what's the difference between an inductive and a deductive method? Try to be careful. And inductive starts from the what we see and I try by starting from the data to assess the behavior of the process. Deductive, I start from the physics or from the theory, and then by knowing the theory, I move again downward to the process. It's a different story. So deductive means that you build a model. And then there are the questions related to models. Linear reservoir, and I may ask you, it's very frequent that I ask you to come to integrate the equation of the linear reservoir to get the representation in analytical terms. I may ask you what happens if rainfall is constant, and then the hydrograph, what is the hydrograph that you get under constant rainfall. I think I did it. In any case, look at the web pages, okay? The web pages are what is important. I think I did it. Let me see. Sorry if sometimes I don't remember well because I have several subjects to teach and then actually it's not here. So there is, yeah, it is here. It's not well visible, I'm sorry, because displaying in web pages there is sometimes when I change the monitor. So, and I may ask you, can you please draw it? What happens? Make a drawing. We didn't do it, but it's very easy to make it. Okay, and then I may ask something like nonlinear reservoir. What's the difference? What's the problem? And then there is, let me say, I consider the linear reservoir like a business as usual question. I don't consider it a tough question. I told you, I mentioned to you that sometimes in order to resolve the doubt on whether or not to give the laude, I may ask tough questions. And possibly I may also go a little bit outside of what I directly taught. So the linear reservoir, to me, it's not a tough question. It's business as usual. Okay? Of course, it doesn't mean that if you don't remember how to integrate it, you are rejected. But to give you an example, if you make everything good and the question on the linear reservoir and you cannot write the integral, you lose something like 3 marks and you go from 30 to 27. I just want to give to you an example which you shouldn't take as an exact approximation, because the evaluation depends on many things. So sometimes you may not remember the integral, but it's clear that you have a good perception of how the model works. And in this case, to me, it's not very important if you don't remember a step in the integration. It's much worse if you remember the integral, but I perceive that you don't see the big picture. You don't see what is the meaning of adopting a linear reservoir for describing a catchment. What is the rationale behind it? What is the motivation why you adopt the linear reservoir and not high mode? Or what is the motivation why you adopt high mode rather than the linear reservoir? What is the motivation? Think of the number of parameters, for instance. The linear reservoir has 1 parameter. High mode has 5 parameters. And then there is the discussion we had on flexibility versus uncertainty. A more flexible model is potentially more precise. Under calibration it works better, but there is higher uncertainty when you apply it. These are the important things that you should get from this subject. So if I realize that you got these important concepts, how modeling works, when it is time to use a model rather than using data, and you don't remember a step in the integration, really I don't care much about it. It is much worse, again, if I understand that you learn by memory an integral, but you didn't get the big picture. I hope this helps you. IMOD, I consider IMOD quite a tough question, but there are several ways in which I can ask IMOD. If I ask, for instance, just to tell me what is the starting point, what is the concept, this is not very tough. But if I see that you got the concept well, I may be curious to see if you also are able to develop the integrals, which usually, when I decide to ask this question, usually students reply well, because it's not so tough. But still, I consider the comprehension of IMOD, and it's a question that I ask only to students that are well prepared, usually. Okay, and then we spoke about groundwater. And these steps to compute the groundwater equation, which is here again, sorry if here it's displayed it's very tiny. I consider it a tough question. But sometimes it happens. It is an infrequent question because I am a surface water hydrologist, not a groundwater hydrologist. So for, you know, it happens with less frequently. Also because I think that you have to read the groundwater equation in other subjects, and therefore. Okay. One thing, if you are in doubt before taking the exam, like, is it important that I study this? Please do send me an email. It's not a stupid question for me. So if you're in doubt between today and your exam, like you look at my web page, because this is a suggestion that I give to you. If you want to study, just study the web pages, and if you are keen on expanding, start from anyway from there. If you are in doubt, like this seems to be something that is tough for me, not very interesting for me, and your question is this a potential subject for the exam? You can send me an email, and I give you suggestions. I'm very keen on giving them. I have no secrets, because, you know, I don't think that you learn better if I keep some secrets on the questions. This is not my experience. Maybe that I'm wrong, but... Okay, and then calibration and validation. This is a classical question. What is calibration, what is validation? Objective functions, classical question. So look at the web pages and learn them. And again, keep in mind the difference between calibration and validation. It is extremely, we discussed it a lot, but it is something that I don't understand why students usually overlook. They think probably that it's not interesting, but it is indeed very interesting to understand that when you validate, you should expect a larger uncertainty, and to understand why. Design your river barrages, this is also something that I frequently ask, like, can you please make a sketch of a river barrage and explain to me what are the essential elements of it. So, the weirs, the environmental flow weir, the withdrawal weir or speedway, whatever, main speedway, main weir, or another question is how to estimate the difference in elevation between the weirs. This is quite a business as usual question. Or how to design a sand trap. If you remember, I suggested you to independently study Stokes formula. I didn't derive it, but I may ask to derive it. Like, can you derive Stokes formula? Some students say no, sorry, okay, no problem. But still, it's a small gap. And other questions related to river barrages may be related to what's the difference between regulated and unregulated barrages, what are advantages and disadvantages. Again, you can find everything, or in the web pages, or what are the conditions for a barrage to be classified as a dam in Italy. Assessment of human impact is a bit tricky because let's see what's there, but it is something that I may ask, like how can we assess human impact? And you may remember that I tried to introduce a technical framework. This is a question that is descriptive. So perceptional assessment first, and identification of methods, development of future scenarios, uncertainty assessment. I may ask you why uncertainty assessment is important. This is a typical first question. And then examples of human impact. This seems to be a trivial question, but have a look at the examples that I made, because keep in mind that trivial questions are the most tricky, because you are not allowed to fail them, or maybe you are allowed, but still it's not a good performance. And sometimes what seems to be trivial is difficult to discuss, because there is not much to say. But these examples, which are trivial, like hard facts, soft facts, try to learn them, because don't make the mistake of focusing only on formulas, what seems to be technical, because your first question, especially if you didn't make any interaction, will be descriptive, and therefore I may ask you, let's talk about human impact. What are examples? Hard facts, soft facts. And method for assessing the effect of each driver. And don't forget trend estimation. Trend estimation is something that I may ask, because I'm sure that you also studied it in other courses. So how can we assess the presence of trend? And then this equation here, you should be able to write it down to explain what is epsilon and what are A and B. Don't forget, let me see if, I was saying, don't forget to study what is a linear function, but I don't think that I included it here. So this is not extremely important. It's not important actually. How to estimate linear regression, and you should say that you use minimization of sum of squares. About the confidence interval, this is a typical example of something that you may forget. There are some issues in these web pages which I am including because I think they are very useful information for you, but I'm not requiring that you know them at the exam. And so this is something that you may just drop. My suggestion is not to drop anything, at least for having an idea of what's there. But still, of course, this is not something that you learn. You should really learn in detail, because we didn't explain it in detail. We didn't discuss it in detail. Okay. And then these two different classes of model, human impacts as an external, forcing, or inherent component. And then I think that's it. Okay, let's go back. This is something that I don't ask in the exam. Remember, probability theory and extreme river flow estimation is something that is there for your information. It's absolutely not asked at the exam. Absolutely. Saltwater intrusion, of course, yes, it's technical. Okay. Exercises. Absolutely, you don't need to bring anything at the exam. Still, if you want to make some proposal for your second question, if you interacted, your option may be also to explain something that we did in the exercises. try to be technical and not trivial, meaning that if you decide that I make a stupid example to explain to me how to use R, this is not a good option for you. I mean, if you want to maximize your performance and you decide to select a question, try to select a question that is technically relevant. But if you explain to me, for instance, how you wrote the iMod code, this is a good example. It's technical because I'm still wondering whether I was effective in teaching how to program. If you can prove to me that you learned how to write down a program, I think it would be a good option for you to focus on this in your selected question. Okay, I think that this is enough, and probably I'm still missing some examples of tough questions. Like a tough question, I consider a tough question. Keep in mind that I am a bit reluctant because if I tell you the examples of my tough questions, they are not tough anymore. But still, I think it is interesting if I give you some examples, but don't assume that the examples are comprehensive. And, but what I consider a tough question is also, please tell me about the hydrostatic law. So we refer to hydrostatic conditions when we discussed about saltwater intrusion, but we didn't discuss in detail about the hydrostatic law. I said something, but not in detail. So this is something tough because it goes a little bit beyond what I explicitly discussed. So tell me about the hydrostatic law. Or another tough question may be, how do you, if you had to perform visual evaluation of the performances of hydro. You get an hydrograph and I may draw an hydrograph which is wrong. I may ask you, what parameters would you change? Like, let's suppose that I draw a simulated hydrograph that is anticipated. It arrives first, before then the observations. So I may ask you, what would you do in this? If you had to manually tune, this is tough. Depending on what is the part of the hydrograph that it's mistakenly reproduced, it may be a bit tough. Not a bit, it's really tough. These are just examples, and you know, you don't need to be much concerned about possible tough questions. The suggestion that I give to you, the tough questions, allow me to understand if you got the big picture, if you spend time thinking about what you are studying. So you are studying a model. So if you spend time thinking about how the model works, I can tell you, I can realize it in the exam. It's clear. It's clear when you speak of something that you just studied, or something that you studied and made an effort to assimilate, to understand. This is what really makes a very good student to me. When I realize that you spent time not only just studying, but thinking at it. And keep in mind that it doesn't imply that you spent a lot of time on it. It's a different story. The time that you spend studying, it's not proportional to your assimilation of the subject. Keep in mind that in first consideration, the time that you spend studying is very subjective. There are students that can learn with half an hour of studying, other students that need more time, which doesn't mean that it's easier for the student that employs just half an hour. It's just a different behavior. But no matter of how long you need, it's a different thing if you absorb what you study which means that you are interested in it. You make an effort to assimilate it because either you are interested or you think that assimilating it is important, assimilation is important. It's another story if you just study and your mind is not really focused on what you're doing. Again, it's not related, or it's very weakly related to the time you spend on it. Of course, if you spend more time, you have more chances to assimilate, to better learn and assimilate. But again, the connection is not really, it's weak. Okay, now let me go to the drive and to the interactions. Give me 1 second because, okay. Okay, there were students who, let's make an assessment of the interactive activities that we made. There were students who gave presentations. There were students who gave presentation and suggested some videos. There were students only suggesting videos. I think this assessment is comprehensive. So, let's focus on them in chronological order. So there was Alessandro who suggested a video, Niccolò suggested a video at the beginning, and then another video by Niccolò, Riccardo suggested a video, and Arianna suggested